Hello and welcome to EV Car Share. So today I'm going to be talking about the regeneration system, I guess is the right word, in the Kia EV6. And I'll mention other cars as well in kind of generalization, because you can't talk about the regen options in this car without also kind of talking about how it is in other cars if you were to go for one of those. So a lot of other cars, they have maybe two modes, or vary from car to car, but they'll have at least kind of standard mode, a high regen mode, and maybe they'll have a single pedal driving mode, or which is like ultra regen, or maybe they'll have a low regen mode as well, maybe two or three, depending on what brand you're going for. The Kia, and they will either be on a stalk or they'll be on like the dial that controls drive, reverse, etc. The Kia, on the other hand, has paddles at the back of the steering wheel. So I don't know if you can see it on the video. My preview doesn't really show, but you have a paddle on this left side of the steering wheel and paddle on the right side of the steering wheel, just like you would have if you had, let's say, so in my previous car I had the Seat Leon with the paddle shifters at the back with the DSG gearbox, and the paddle shifters allowed you on the steering wheel to go up and down gears. So similar to that, the Kia has paddle shift on the back of the steering wheel, obviously not to shift gears, it's to change the regen from different regen modes. So you have a mode 0, a mode 1, a mode 2, a mode 3, and should we call it a mode 4? Kia call it iPedal. So effectively it's mode 4 really. But we'll call it iPedal. And then there is an auto mode, but I'll come to that separately. So mode 1 I quite like to liken to how it would feel to drive a petrol car when you're traveling at reasonable speed and you lift off the accelerator and you can feel the engine braking. So let's say you're in 5th and you're driving along at 60 mile an hour, you lift off the accelerator, you can feel the car slows because of the engine braking. If you were to knock it into neutral, then the car would roll a lot faster. So Regen 1 feels similar to that. Regen 0, if you drop down, that is no regen at all, and because the car doesn't have an engine to provide that braking experience or that braking function, like with a petrol car, then it is very much like the car has been shifted into neutral. It feels like the car is rolling, and sometimes if you're not used to it, or if you're trying it for the first time on this car, it can be a bit disconcerting. It can feel like the car is trying to escape from you, which could be a little bit dangerous, which I think is one of the reasons why you cannot leave it, well, if you turn it off in Regen 0, when you start next time you drive, it will not start in Regen 0. It will never start up in Regen 0. I think that is because it allows the car a bit more freedom to roll than what you might be used to if you're used to driving an engined car rather than an electric motor car. So that I think is why you can't start up in 0. You can always change into 0 immediately if that's what you prefer. So 0 level is no regen, 1 is small amount of regen, 2, 3, more and more regen, and then 4 is the maximum, or iPedal as it's called, is the maximum one. iPedal is the only one that will bring you to a complete standstill. So in iPedal mode, when you lift off the accelerator, it will slow you down more rapidly, and it will eventually come to a complete standstill as well. All the others modes will have creep. So when they get down to creeping sort of speed, they will continue to creep, much the same as you would get with an automatic if it was a petrol or diesel car. If you've driven an automatic, you put it into gear and it will immediately start creeping, which is why you have to put your foot on the brake in order to select drive in the first place, so that it's held until you release your foot off the brake and then it starts its creep. Same with this car, you put it into drive, it will creep. It's only if you go into iPedal mode then that it will allow you to come to a stop and be a complete stop. So what is the Regen doing? Well, it's regenerating your momentum that you've got built up from driving. So if you're traveling at 50 mile an hour on a road, you have momentum, and it's putting that momentum back into the batteries, that energy back into the battery as electrical energy and chemical energy in the battery, really. It is not very efficient, so you only get back a small amount of what you outlaid in the first place getting the car up to speed, but it's better than nothing. So in a petrol or diesel car, when you put your foot on the brake, all of that momentum goes into the brakes, and that's why the brakes get hot, because you are changing that energy from the momentum you had, the kinetic energy, into heat energy. Just going to do this junction, concentrate on the junction. Rather than talking. There we go. So yeah, with the normal brakes, it's all converted into heat energy. Every little part of that momentum, that energy you had from your momentum, is lost. Whereas with electric car, with Regen, you are regaining some of it. It's only a small amount, but you are regaining some of it, and over time it makes a difference. It's a bit worth having, let's say. As I mentioned before, you get a different feel to the car depending on which mode you have. So you may want to choose the mode you choose, or decide on the mode you want to drive in, not based on the efficiency you get out of it, but based on the driving feel. Remember, it's fun to drive a car. Well, I think so. I mean, some people might not, but there is a way that the car feels that will suit you and your driving style. And so if someone else says, oh, it's better to be in this mode because this is more efficient, tell them to just shut up, or ignore them, of course. If it's on social media or something like that, just ignore them. Pick the mode that suits you best. Now, I'm going to do a little study in a moment about how much regen or how much regeneration occurs in all the different modes, just to kind of show you and do some car scanner stuff, just for information really. As I say, most important is to drive in a mode that suits you best. So this road's a bit bendy and twisty. I'm going to wait until I'm on a straighter section of the road. I'm going to bring the car up to 50 mile an hour in each of the Regen modes and lift off the accelerator. I'm going to see how high the kilowatts goes on the power going into the battery. As I say, this road at the moment is a little bit twisty, so I will do it when I manage to get a straighter section. Additionally, on this particular car, you have a mode called Auto. Now you can access that by pressing and holding the right paddle until Auto comes up on the screen. It's the icon just down in the left by the battery percentage. That's your Regen icon. It goes through the numbers, level 1, level 2, etc. And then if you press and hold the right paddle, it will put it onto Auto mode. Now Auto mode will adjust based on how your driving conditions. So it's effectively taking into account the speed you're going at and whether or not there's a car in front, is what I seem to find. This car is the GT Line UK spec, which has HDA1, so that's the Highway Driving Assistance 1. There is another car, the spec up, which has level 2. Now it might also take into account the GPS, the sat nav, and determine are you coming up to a bend or a junction, and change the auto regen appropriately for that. I can't tell you if that's the case or not. I'm just surmising, because I've got this car, I don't have the other car, so I can't really make that decision or make that analysis, let's say. So that's pressing and holding on the right paddle. There's also a function for pressing and holding on the left paddle. Now, if you press and hold on the left paddle, that will activate maximum regen. Now, as I mentioned, we're running through the different modes. We have mode 0, 1, 2, 3 and iPedal, or 4, depending on what you want to call it. iPedal on screen, so we'll call it iPedal. And the iPedal mode is your maximum regen mode. So if you are in iPedal mode and you press and hold the left paddle, you will have no effect whatsoever, it will do nothing, because you are already in the maximum regen mode. It can't regenerate any more than its maximum. Basically, the feedback through the motor into the battery has a maximum kilowatts that can be fed through, and it can't go any higher. So if you're already in the maximum mode, there is no point in pressing and holding the left paddle. If you want to experience how much effect you can have pressing and holding that paddle, then the best mode to try it out in is, of course, mode 0. Because mode 0, when you lift off the accelerator, you have no regen, and then you can press and hold the left paddle, you then get max regen. So then you will feel yourself slowing down substantially from that action of pressing and holding the left paddle. If you move up through the regen modes, then you'll feel like that holding the left paddle is less and less noticeable. So if you're in regen mode 3, you lift off the accelerator, you're already slowing down quite substantially, not maximum, but quite substantially from holding down the left paddle. You will not gain a great deal extra. Whereas mode 2, it'll be a bit more, and mode 1 will be a bit more, and as I say, in mode 0, then when you hold that left paddle, it will feel like you're really slowing the car down by your action of holding the left paddle. Now, is it better to drive around in iPedal mode all the time and get the regen from lifting off the brake, the accelerator, or is it better to drive around in 0 and use the left paddle to get the max regen? As I say, it's really up to you. I don't think, from my driving of the car, that there's much difference between the different modes in terms of efficiency. Efficiency in the car is primarily down to how you drive it and the weather conditions, whether it's windy or not, whether it's cold or not. The regen is influential. If you had no regen on at all compared to using regen, yes, that makes a difference. But between the different modes, I think there's a minor amount. And so I would say, rather than worrying about which is most efficient, worry more about which is your preferred driving mode, which feels right to you. That's just my advice. I don't normally give advice. I normally try to just tell you what I'm doing, but that's, on this occasion, I've given some advice, gone away from my normal rules. When you press your foot on the brake, it will, in all except for mode 0, in all of the other modes, 1 upwards, if you press your foot on the brake, it will provide regen up to the maximum as you push harder on the brake. At the point where you have gone beyond the maximum regen, it will then apply the friction brakes on the wheels, so the traditional brakes, disc brakes in the case of this car. So you will also get regen by just pressing the brake as you would do normally in a petrol or diesel car. You don't have to press and hold the paddle to get some regeneration. However, if you push the brake beyond the maximum, then you will use the actual car's brakes. So if you're trying to avoid using the brakes completely, then using the paddles will obviously allow you to do that, allow you to ensure that you are entirely doing all of your stopping within the regen's ability. On this car, it has got quite a high level of regen, I believe. I haven't driven other cars or lived with other EVs, so I don't know what their limits are on regen, but from some of the reviews I've seen on Facebook, YouTube, I think this car is one of the ones that provides one of the higher levels of regeneration back into the battery in terms of kilowatts. So, oh, pigeon, move out the way. Sorry about that. Pigeon stood in the road. Sometimes they move, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you have to really get close and slow right down, get them to move. Annoying little things. Yeah, so back to what I was saying, the brake pedal will also activate Regen up to a certain level. I mentioned except in zero. In zero, what you'll find is that you apply the brake pedal and you get no Regen. You only get braking, foot brake pedal, based on the friction brakes, the disc brakes in the wheels. That can be quite useful. You can set the mode to zero and you can use your brake on an occasional drive just to help it have some time using the actual brakes. That helps to clean the discs and the pads. If they otherwise don't get used very much, they can go a bit rusty if they're not ever getting used. So you can drop down into zero Regen mode, use your foot to do the braking, and then you can clean the discs and pads. The other thing I want to mention about Regen is that if you are using the paddle, left paddle, the hold in order to apply the max Regen, it will not allow you to do that function if you've already started braking with your foot pedal. So if you apply the foot pedal and then you apply max Regen using the left paddle behind the steering wheel, then it will pop up a message saying that the paddle regeneration is not available. I can't remember the exact word. Something about the conditions not met for Regen or something like that. That's because you have already started braking with your foot. I guess it's because Regen is also linked to the foot pedal, so it needs to calculate how much Regen to apply based on the foot pedal, and if you've already applied that and then you're trying to apply the left paddle with your hand, then to avoid confusion and to avoid getting it wrong, I'm guessing the software engineers have said just no, that's not a condition we're supporting. Sorry about that. So that's just one thing to mention if you see that. Okay, so travelling along, Regen 0, 50 mile an hour. I'm just going to lift off the accelerator now. As you can see, the EV battery power on car scanner drops down to 0.2 of a kilowatt, but it doesn't go to the negative, which is where we need to be for Regen. So you can see there's no Regen at all at level 1. So moving up to level 0, sorry. So moving up to level 1, we are now up to 50 again. And if I lift off, you can see that we get up to down to minus 19. Before then it drifts slightly down because we lose momentum, of course. It can't put Regen back into the battery if it hasn't got the momentum. So at 50 mile an hour, we can see that in level 1 we get 20 kilowatts into the battery. So let's move up again to level 2. Unfortunately, I've got a car behind me now, so we'll have to wait until a bit later. I was hoping he'd overtake me. I'm doing 50 and a 60, but he seems to be, not really bothered. So we'll carry on when I get a bit more clear road. So I'm doing 50 in level 2 now, and if I lift off, then you can see we get to minus 36, so about 35 kilowatts going back into the battery at level 2. Slowing from 50. That was slightly downhill, so it might be slightly on the high side, that value, but I don't think it was. I don't think it'll make a huge amount of difference. And now I'm coming to a stopped queue for a roundabout, so we will really have to try levels 3, 4 and so on. Levels 3, iPedal and so on a bit later. Okay, so next Regen test is level 3. I'm at 50 mile an hour. I have no one behind me. So I'm going to lift off the accelerator now. and we'll see what we get. Okay, so that's over 50 kilowatts back into the battery on level 3. So I now have someone behind me, so I can't do iPedal. Maybe I can just accelerate a lot and get ahead of them a bit more. Looks like it's a small car. Actually, I can turn in a moment, so I can use the iPedal to decelerate for the turn off to the right. So if I bring my speed down to 50 to make it comparable to the other two, in just a short time I will be needing to decelerate anyway. So this time I'm in iPedal, which is the 4th mode. So this is the maximum. I'm going to just reduce my speed to 50. There we go. Work on 50 on the dash, not on the GPS as in car scanner. Indicate to the right and lift off, and you can see we go up to 63 using the iPedal mode. So that's how the different modes compare when you lift off at 50 mile an hour. So there is a summary on screen now showing all of those values. You will have seen them on car scanner throughout the video. Okay, so I'm travelling on the motorway now. This gives me the opportunity to check out the maximum regen. So what I'm going to do is I'm coming up to my junction where I want to get off, and what I'm going to do is I'm in mode 0. I don't think it's going to make that much difference, but I'm going to use the paddle to slow myself down for the junction, and we'll see what we get on car scanner. So you can see car scanner there. I did this earlier, I got minus 97.64, which is what you can see as the minimum number on car scanner at the moment. But we'll see if I get any more. I don't know what the actual maximum is, so we will accelerate a bit and then we will hold the paddle and see what we get. So just going to accelerate, and oh, car moving out from in front of me, that's quite useful. And then just now I'm going to hold the paddle and we get 104, so over 100 kilowatts into the battery. That was decelerating from motorway speeds. I don't know how much faster would make a difference. It's almost 105 kilowatts into the battery from max regen. Now bear in mind there are some EV cars out there that won't DC charge at that sort of speed. That's more power going into the battery from regen than what some cars can do when they are DC charging. So as I say, I think that's quite impressive. I don't know how useful that information is to you. I find it interesting. Hopefully you find it interesting too. And hopefully you found this video interesting. If you have, obviously give it a like. If you like my videos in general, then subscribe. And I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will speak to you next time. Thank you for watching.